Okay, thank you. Now guys, if we are solving for x here, we obviously want to get rid of that square root. Right, does that make sense to everyone? The square root is in the way. Okay, now what is the opposite of square rooting something? Squaring it. Okay, so what we need to do on the left-hand side to get rid of that square root is we're going to have to square the whole side, all right, the whole square root. So you can actually just do it in a different color pen. You don't have to write the separate step. So we're going to square that whole surd. But guys, it's an equation. Can I do it just on the one side? No, you would have to do it on the other side as well. Okay, so you're going to have to square the 3, which is on the other side. Now, what is happening here with the square root and the square? They're going to cancel each other out. So I'm just going to be left with x plus 2. And on the other side, what is 3 squared? 9. Well, that's quite easy, hey? I must just move that plus 2 over. And what's the opposite of adding 2? Subtracting 2. So x is going to equal 7. Okay. You might get one of them, yeah. Now, guys, the most important thing when it comes to surd equations, all right, when we square both sides, we are actually introducing something foreign to that equation, all right? There was no square originally. So sometimes you'll see later on when we get to equations that have 2 answers, sometimes one or both of your answers actually might not work, okay? So with surd equations, you always have to check your answers. Okay, that's very important. Okay, you have to check your answers. Now, guys, technically with all equations, you are supposed to do that. When you solve for x or whatever the variable is, you are supposed to just sub it back into the equation and check whether it works, okay, just for like your own checking purposes. But when it comes to surd equations, they will probably in the test or exam give you one where one of the answers are invalid, all right? Because they want to catch you out. They want to check, are you actually checking your answers? Because if you're not, then you're going to lose a mark if you don't say that one of those answers are invalid. Okay, now how would you check your answers, guys? What would you have to do? Sub it back into the original thing. Hey, so you don't have to write this down as a part of your answer. You can just kind of do it on the calculator or in your head. But let's just write it down so that we remember that we have to do it. So on the left-hand side, we have the square root of x plus 2, which will now have to be 7 plus 2, hey? So I'm subbing my x value into the equation. And what is this? What's 7 plus 2? 9. And what is the square root of 9? 3. Is that equal to the right-hand side? What do I have on the right-hand side? 3. Okay. So this is equal to the right-hand side. So what does that mean? Is x equals 7 a valid answer? Does it make my equation true? Yes. All right. So if that happens, you don't have to write anything else there. Okay, we're just checking to see where the 7 works. Okay, for surd equations, you must always do that. I'm going to say again, you don't have to write this down. Let me actually write that down. Don't have to write But guys, for these examples, I am going to write it down so that when you look back at the examples, you remember to actually do that. Okay, any questions on that one? That was a nice simple one just to get us going. Okay, let's look at number 2. Now guys, the best thing to do when you have a surd equation is to actually just make sure that you have your surd on its own on the one side and everything else on the other side. Okay, you don't have to, it just makes the actual solution much easier. So if we take that 5 over and then that 3 as well. All right, so that the only thing that we have is the surd. That will make the whole squaring process easier. So let's write that down. I'm going to use the terminology that they used in the note, which is to isolate the surd. Okay, very fitting for our current times. We want to get the surd on its own. Okay, we all know what isolate means, I'm sure. So everything else we're going to move to the other side. So that -5 is going to become a +5. So we're going to have 3 root 40 minus x is equal to, what is 13 plus 5? 18. And now the 3 that's in front of the surd, do we all agree that I'm multiplying by the 3? So if I move it, I'm going to have to divide by 3. Okay? And what is 18 divided by 3? 6. So we're going to have the square root of 40 minus x is equal to 6. Okay, we have our surd on its own, and that's equal to a number. So now we can square both sides. Again, you don't have to write that as a separate step. You can literally do it like I am doing there. So just put brackets around it and square, and then on the other side as well. Now we know that the square root and the square, they're going to cancel each other out. So we have 40 minus x is equal to 6 squared, which is 36. Eh? Okay, let's take that 40 over to the other side. So we have negative x equals, what's 36 minus 40? -4. So x is then equal to 4. Right, let's check our answer, guys. It's a third equation, so we always have to check our answer. So let's write LHS equals. And now you need to sub it into the original equation, hey? Not one that you've changed. You need to sub it into the original one. So 3 square root 40 minus x now becomes 40 minus 4, because x is 4, minus 5. And guys, obviously, you could also just use your calculator to type that in, or you can do it in your head. So we have in the surd, we have 40 minus 4, which is what? 36. And what's the square root of 36? 6. So it's 3 times 6, which is 18, minus 5, which is 13. And that is, in fact, what we have on the right. So is x equals 4 a valid answer? Yes. Okay, because it does make the original equation true. Now, guys, if you didn't isolate the surd, I'm going to write it next to it. If you went from this step, right, if you had your original equation, and you then just saw, okay, there's a surd, I must square everything to get rid of it, you would have to put these two terms in brackets and square that whole thing. And then you would have to square the 13. And what do you do when you have a bracket squared? 2 brackets and then you FOIL it out. Okay, so then you would have to do this. You would have to say 3 root 40 minus x minus 5 times 3 root 40 minus x minus 5 is equal to 13 squared. And then you would have to FOIL that out. Okay, do you see why I'm saying that it's easier if you just get the surd on its own? That then when you square, it's actually just literally a one-step square. Okay, so you would still get to the same answer here if you did this, provided that you didn't make any mistakes in this multiplying out. So you would literally have to do 3 times 3 is 9. And then this times this is, so you would do this, hey? Like that, the firsts, and then the outers, and then the inners, and then the lasts. Okay, is equal to 13 squared. So yeah, it would be a long process. Like I said, you could get to the same answer, but it will take much longer. And it's also easier to make mistakes if you're working with this type of equation. Okay. All right, let's do one last example. Number 3. Square root of x plus 3 is equal to x minus 9. we already have our surd isolated, okay, on its own. So we can actually straight away square both sides. So let's do that. We put brackets around the surd and we're going to square it to cancel out that square root. And now, guys, you're squaring both sides, hey? You're not squaring specific terms. So because we have two terms on the other side, on the right-hand side, we have to square both of them. So we have to put brackets around them and then square. Right, so this example is a bit more complicated. In the first two, we just had a number on the right-hand side that we have to square. Now we actually have an x and a number. Okay, so we're going to end up with an x squared here. So we're going to get x plus 3 is equal to x minus 9, x minus 9. You can do that straight away if you want. Okay, I'm just writing every step down. So we have our x plus 3 on the left, and now we FOIL out x times x is x squared. If we do our outers, we're going to get negative 9x, right? X times negative 9. Our inners, negative 9 times x. Again, we get negative 9x. And negative 9 times negative 9 is positive 81. Yes, good. Guys, do we notice our x squared? So what type of equation is this? Quadratic. So we have to get everything on the one side equal to 0. All right. So is it okay with you guys if I put my 0 on the left now? Like that. If I just move the x and the plus 3. Oh, do you not like that? Okay. Okay. Can I do it? Can I do this then? Let's say I'm literally just swapping the two sides around. You don't have to write this as a separate step. I just don't want people to get confused. Is that better? Did you know that you're allowed to do that? You can just straight swap the two sides of an equation. People just like the x squared on the left. So you don't have to do it like this if you feel fine with the x squared on the right. I'm just going with majority rules here. Okay, so we have x squared. What's negative 9x minus 9x? Negative 18x. And then this is going to become another negative x. So that leaves me with negative 19x. Am I right? And then what is 81 minus 3? 78. Why? That becomes a minus x when you move it. So that's negative 9 minus 9 is 18, but then you bring the minus 1 again. Okay, guys, I am assuming that you would prefer to use the quadratic formula, but I have the factors already. Can I just write the brackets? Yes. Is that fine? To save some time. So this would be x minus 13 and x minus 6. I'm just going to write on the side or use quadratic formula. That's fine. You would get the same answers. Okay, so what are my two x values? X equals 13 or x equals 6. Now, guys, we have two x values, so we have to do two checks. Okay, so let's check x equals 13. Let's check that one first. So on the left, we have the square root of x plus 3, which is 13 plus 3, which is just the square root of 16, hey? Which is what? 4. What do I have on the right, guys? I'm just going to say here, RHS. On the right, we have x minus 9. And our x value that we're checking is 13, right? So 13 minus 9 is also 4. Is my left-hand side equal to my right-hand side? Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to put an equals LHS here. But guys, remember, you don't actually have to write this down when you're doing this in a test or exam. Okay, so don't stress about this too much. You literally can also just type it into the calculator. So you can type square root of 13 plus 3 equals, it will give you 4. And then you type in 13 minus 9. Hopefully you wouldn't have to type that in, but then you would also get 4. Yes.
What's the difference between trinomial and quadratic? Is quadratic
A trinomial is a specific type of quadratic. So an x squared minus x, for example, that's also a quadratic equation, but it's not a trinomial. Okay. Okay. All right. So guys, does x equals 13 work? Yes. Okay. It makes the left-hand side equal to the right-hand side. Let's check x equals 6. So on the left-hand side, we have, and I'm looking at that, hey, the original x equation. So we have the square root of 6 plus 9. No, I'm sorry, 6 plus 3. 6 plus 3, there we go, which is the square root of 9, which is 3, okay? Now we need to sub 6 into the right-hand side. So we're going to say RHS equals 6 minus 9, which is now negative 3. Is 3 equal to negative 3? No, hey? So this does not actually equal the left-hand side. So that means that x equals 6. It is a possible solution for this quadratic equation that we have. But guys, was this a quadratic equation at the beginning? It wasn't actually, hey? We turned it into a quadratic equation in order to get rid of that surd. So we have actually introduced that x equals 6 as an answer. Okay, it's not actually an answer to the original equation. So you need to draw a line through that equals, please. So it has to say x is not equal to 6. And then you need to write underneath that invalid. But guys, don't fix it out. All right, don't scratch it out. I still need to see that you had 6 as one of your possible answers, and then that you are saying that it's invalid. Yeah. Yes, you will get an extra mark for saying invalid. All right, so guys, if you're not checking and you just leave it as 13 or 6, you're going to lose a mark. Okay, you're not going to get that final one. Right, does that make sense? Okay, I am just going to give you some of these to practice on your own. So let's see, exercise 15. And guys, we are actually done with exponents and surds now. This was the last topic. Yeah, from Monday. No. We're doing like practicing all the different types together. All right, let's not start going off onto a different tangent, please. You're doing 1, 2, and then 7 to 11. Okay, get going, get going.